Hello and welcome to the big picture. The confrontation between India and Pakistan following the attack at Uri Army base has resulted in various options being discussed as far as India is concerned. While there are people who want instant retaliation, there are others who feel the diplomatic option is better. Meanwhile, the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs has come out with a statement raising the issue of the Indus Waters Treaty. The statement hinted that the Indus waters can be used as an option to teach Pakistan a lesson, which some see as a veiled threat to turn the tap off. What is this Indus Waters Treaty? How does it benefit both India and Pakistan? And whether it can be used as a bargaining tool or a handle? How practical or viable is it? And what will be the consequences of it? We will discuss all this today with Vivek Katju, former ambassador, Srinivas Chokkakula, senior fellow, Center for Policy Research, Mohan Katarki, advocate at the Supreme Court, and Amitabh Sinha, senior editor, Indian Express. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Katju, so, this treaty, it has held for so many years now. It is what, how many, more than 60 years, 65 years.
60, 60. Signed in 1960.
It was signed in 1960.
So 56 years if you want to be exact.
So, is this something which can be used as a handle? How is it that this treaty has survived all kinds of problems which India and Pakistan had, and now we are talking about it?
Let's say one or two things quickly. One, the treaty has been very unpopular, and ironically, in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. They've always felt that they've been diddled out of their fair share of water. The second point, if you see the genesis of the treaty, it lies in Pakistan's absolute fear. And I think part of that was genuine, part of it was propaganda in the 1950s on the waters question. If you see the literature of that period, it abounds in Pakistan's fears that India will turn off the tap. Now, therefore, we entered into a treaty which was mediated by the World Bank and others, in order to give Pakistan an assurance that, look, on waters you don't have anything to fear from India. Even though this treaty, we knew at that time that this treaty was more beneficial to Pakistan than to us, because the western rivers which have been given to Pakistan have far more water.
These western rivers are Indus.
The Chenab, Jhelum and the Indus. Have far more water than the eastern rivers that are with us.
That is the Ravi, Beas and Satluj.
Now the difference is that the western rivers' waters can only be used by us, except for a very minor amount, for non-consumptive purposes. That hope that Pakistan will feel more secure and therefore be less hostile towards us has never been realized. So there has been a feeling in significant sections of our public opinion, those who know of this, that the
very few know about this.
Yes, because we never pushed it. But those who know feel that this treaty really hasn't served its purpose. It's been far too generous. And in Jammu and Kashmir, as I say, there's been this great feeling that it is against their interests. Now, that is one issue. The other issue is that it has held because we've never raised it. We take our treaties seriously. Because of which Pakistan has objected strenuously to every project that has been tried to be built in the western rivers for non-consumptive purposes.
Two projects.
No, if you look at it, there are over 200 projects, big and small. Because
but they went for arbitration on two projects.
No, I'll tell you. There's also a point there which your people should know. One is that because of after 1972, we didn't want third-party mediation. Therefore, and since the dispute mechanism clauses of the treaty provide that ultimately there will be a kind, after experts meet, etc., the mechanism is that there will be representatives assigned by the World Bank, the Chief Justice of the United States, the Lord Chancellor of England. I mean, those were the times. Yes, really, if you look at it, So therefore, after 72, after Simla, we said we won't invoke it. And I think it is to the credit of Dr. Manmohan Singh's government that we decided to take bull by the horns and say, okay, fine, let's go for dispute mechanism, and it's worked generally in our favor when we've done. Now, that is something which we've got to look at seriously, because the waters problem is there. Pakistan has mismanaged its waters, and despite all the treaty, frequently this question is raised that India is very dubious on waters. But this has to be part of a well thought out policy, strategy. It can't be a knee-jerk reaction and pandering to public opinion.
This is what is happening now. You think?
I'm not saying this is what is happening. What I'm saying
don't want
is
to say
it
that.
can't be part of this.
Okay, it can't be part of this. Srinivas, do you think that this treaty has served its purpose? One, Mr. Katju thinks that it may not, some people think that it may not have served the purpose. That's what Mr. Katju says. And second thing is this treaty something which can be used as a handle?
Well, I agree that yes, the treaty has certainly served its purpose, but two things are clear. One is that India is entitled to respond with an appropriate action in the background of these attacks, and the second one is India does have certain kind of strategic advantage with respect to Indus Water Treaty. So, but if it is more in terms of, as Mr. Katju was saying, it is about knee-jerk reactions in terms of denying water in terms of quality or quantity. I think that's not the kind of acts that a democracy, a functioning democracy like India would engage in. But that doesn't close the option of renegotiating the treaty. I mean, it is true that Jammu and Kashmir has had certain grievances, and also at that time it did not address Jammu and Kashmir's interests adequately. So this might be an opportunity to reopen, renegotiate the treaty, but that may also open a kind of Pandora box. At that time, it was the World Bank that has mediated the negotiation, but I don't think at this point of time there is space or otherwise a kind of ecosystem where we can actually get into a negotiated settlement with Pakistan.
Okay. Mohan? So, do you think that there is a need for review of the treaty? And what are the problems in the treaty as far as it exists now? If you think there's any problem.
When the treaty was made in 1960, it was certainly one of the very simple and a well thought treaty. On the face of it, it appeared that Pakistan got more water. Really,
because it says that 80% of the water has gone.
135 to 140 MAF of water generated in the western rivers all went to Pakistan, whereas India just got about 34 MAF of water. But that was the time when in the 1960s still the natural flow theory dominated the field, where the lower riparian had an upper hand. Even still lower riparian have an upper hand. That is how
like we are seeing in Kaveri.
In Kaveri, everywhere the lower riparian has an upper hand. But today, after 55 years, if you look at it, the treaty has really created a problem in India in a sense. Our dependence on eastern rivers has not been sufficient to meet our requirements. The disputes between Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan can be solved if we can have at least about 5 to 10 MAF of water. Whereas another 5 to 10 MAF of water we can divert from the western rivers. If you see Pakistan, do they really require about 135 to 100 MAF of water? My study shows that Pakistan does not have any plans to use more than 105 MAF of water.
And they've utilized to 90%. They have 90%
about
of it.
40 MAF of water goes to sea in Pakistan. Nobody has a right to send water to the sea. Therefore, all that can be renegotiated by India is to divert some about 5 MAF of water from the western rivers to the eastern rivers to solve our problem. But this is a process which has to be diplomatically handled. This is not a process which can be handled by just terminating a treaty. Treaty termination means nothing actually in this. Water flows by gravity. Whether treaty you terminate or you have treaty, Pakistan indeed gets some water because there are no dams across the rivers on the western, what you call eastern rivers, Chenab, Jhelum and Indus. So water will go to Pakistan. If you think that we can teach a lesson to Pakistan by terminating a treaty, we are fooling ourselves. They are not going to be taught a lesson. But at the same time,
there is no way in which you can turn off the tap.
Nothing. You rightly put it. There is no dam, no tap, nothing. What are you going to teach a lesson? It's completely foolishness. But certainly in the long term, India has to renegotiate with Pakistan and come to a fresh treaty where we get more access to the waters of the Western rivers.
Okay, Amitabh, is this a serious thought in any section of the government?
Well, that is what we don't know much about. This is not
because this is something a MEA spokesperson has mentioned it. It's not
Yes.
that somebody it's not speculation or it is not
yes,
that.
but he was very diplomatic in what he said.
Yes.
He was very careful to choose his words. But this
But this is the first time in the last several years that we have seen that any government official
Yes.
has mentioned Indus water treaty.
Exactly, because this argument has been made in the policy circles, it has been made at seminars several times. We do not know whether it has ever been given a very serious thought as a response measure to a specific crisis. That is something that we haven't heard of publicly. Maybe it has been done so, but has not been discussed publicly. But the idea that it can be used as a response measure to one specific crisis like this. Now, that idea seems to be slightly problematic. We really don't know whether we can do that. And as you said, there is actually, we do not have a switch which can be switched off or on. We do not have the necessary infrastructure on these rivers to be able to divert the water or to be able to store the water for some time. Now, that is what you can do. How do you control the flow of water? You have to have some sort of storage or you have some diversion canals which will give you some amount of control over the flow. When does the water flow and how much water does flow? But you do not, since you do not have the necessary infrastructure, there is no switch. So in order to be able to do that, it will take about some years to build that kind of infrastructure. Several years. So a switch in that regard would take those many years to come by. And therefore, at least in this specific crisis, I don't think we can talk about it as a response measure.
Mr. Katju, two things I want you to address. One is, why do you think this, the MEA spokesperson has came out and mentioned this at all, first? And has there, you think that there is some serious thinking within the government before mentioning something like this? That is, if it has been thought through as to how to go about it. One. Second thing is, when this treaty was, India could have used some waters in the western rivers for certain purposes. The treaty had made provisions for that, but we have not done anything on that.
No, you see, let me answer your second question first.
First question is a little
I'll address
inconvenient to you.
No, of course not. It's completely uninconvenient. I will answer that. But your second question is, why haven't we utilized it?
Exactly.
Because every time you built a project, you started a project, the Pakistanis put a stop to it. They objected to it. And as I said, after 72, you got locked in no third party. And hence, you said, let it lie. Because the idea was the dispute mechanism is bizarre, as I told you, the kind of structures that are there in the treaty. And it goes back to the time when we had great faith in the Lord Chief Justice of England and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. But of US, great faith in them. Therefore, we said, let it lie. Despite the fact that Jammu and Kashmir always felt very cheated. Now, hence we couldn't use the waters at all, even for non-consumptive purposes. And
though it was provided in the treaty.
The treaty provides, but if they object, you've got to satisfy them. They were never satisfied. There have been endless rounds of discussions on this through the commissioners on both, Indus Waters commissioners on both sides. Your first question. Look, I think, first of all, we must realize that this was not a suo motu statement of the spokesperson. He was responding to a question. And I think what he said was that all treaties are dependent on a set of objective factors which require goodwill and good faith. So to that extent, he is right. Second, treaties have been abrogated by countries in the past. The United States has abrogated treaties. It's not as if treaties have not been abrogated. Even treaties which do not provide for a specific time frame.
Same is the case with this.
It doesn't provide for a specific time frame, but
Right.
they've been abrogated. That's not an issue. The point is that if we think that Pakistan is an enemy state, and if Pakistan's actions over the last 56 years have demonstrated that conclusively, then this can only be part of a package. It cannot be a knee-jerk reaction in isolation. Why? Because it's been rightly said,
First of all, is Pakistan the enemy state? Have you decided that
Pakistan says India is an enemy state.
we have not said?
Indian liberals are very chary of saying that Pakistan is not an enemy state. I find it mighty strange that one country says you are an enemy, but here we say no, even though you
Okay.
say so, you are not an enemy. No. I know this is inconvenient
No,
to
it's
you.
not. It's not.
No, it is inconvenient
No,
to
the
you.
question that is we are not discussing. We are not
I said,
discussing that.
I'm now,
in the context
you
of.
said it's inconvenient. Please allow me to respond, Girish,
Okay.
that this is inconvenient to you.
No, nothing is inconvenient to me.
So therefore, it can be part of a package that if Pakistan's behavior over the last 56 years has been inimical, then the very premise of that treaty is not fulfilled.
No,
But
so
as I
you're
said,
saying that-
it can't be knee-jerk.
No.
It has to be part of a package when we reorient our policies
when you say
towards Pakistan.
One second. When you say part of the package, what is that part you're talking about? You're talking about
part
the
of
Indus
the
Water
package-
Treaty
no.
being abrogated,
No.
or
So in the
reviewed,
Waters
or
treaty, there's a way of doing it. You can ask for an amendment. If they don't agree, then you can go one step further. There's a certain process of doing it, but what are you raising? You are raising the question, then the issue that Pakistan's interests are none of my concern.
Okay. Srinivas? Srinivas, as far as usage of the water is concerned, why do you think that India has been, what Mr. Katju says, that whenever we have tried to utilize the water, we have been faced with these problems. Did India have any major plans there which has been, which had to be abandoned so far?
Which have been delayed.
Well, I'm not aware of all those. I'm not aware of all those projects, but at least the recent differences or the disputes over Baglihar and Kishanganga, those are some of those projects where Pakistan has strenuously objected to India's plans to develop, and we had to go for arbitration process, at least in Kishanganga. And then the only obligation on India is to ensure that there is a minimum environmental flow into Pakistan. Beyond that, India can actually pretty much do anything that it wants to. I do not see that as such a, I mean, of course, it does put certain kind of restrictions on India's use of the western rivers. And that is the point that we might perhaps consider, provided that we renegotiate the treaty and see if there is any possibility that India can actually get a better deal over the western rivers for the benefit of Jammu and Kashmir and other, generally for India. And that's the only possibility. But otherwise, in terms of, the questions about switching off and on, I don't think they're really practical, as the other co-panelist has mentioned. That it is actually, we don't have I don't think we have the control over these waters is not absolute. And I don't think we have the kind of infrastructure to do that. And even if you can do it, this is about actually directly impacting the civilians. I don't think we would actually, India would go for those kind of measures.
Okay, yes, sir.
No. You see, the treaty says non-consumptive use of the western rivers, with the result that you can only use, say, run-of-the-river projects for generating power. Whenever we've tried to do that, that also requires a pondage to be created. Whenever we've tried to create a structure, the Pakistanis have objected, as in Kishanganga and Baglihar. Then there is the Tulbul navigation project on a stretch of the Jamuna, of the Jhelum. There too they have objected that you can't even create a pondage which will ensure that there is enough water without disturbing the flows into Pakistan. So the treaty is extremely restrictive on the water use of water of the western rivers. It doesn't give us anything. It actually all goes to Pakistan. Now, if you have to then create structures which will give you the use of water without renegotiating the treaty, something which they'll never accept. Because their case today is that Pakistan feels that the treaty has been unfair to them, ironically. So So then you will have to create structures which will go against the treaty.
Mohan, can we do that? In the existing framework of the treaty.
Under the existing framework, as Mr. Katju said, India has very little scope to do anything. The room of play is very little. We have a right to construct certain dams on run-of-the-river technology to generate power. And every time we propose a project, Pakistan says this is not treaty compliant, either in the designs
And in the and, but in
and
the
so many
no,
things.
but as far as Baghliyar and Kishinganga is concerned, it went for arbitration and
Yeah.
it went in favor of Pakistan.
Yeah,
Both
no,
of
it
them.
went in favor of India.
Kishinganga came.
See,
Kishinganga came now.
First was the Baghliyar project. It went to a neutral expert. The Swiss engineer was appointed as a neutral expert. He ruled in favor of India.
Yes.
And the project was permitted, of course, with certain conditions. That's fine. And most important thing, the neutral expert said, when you interpret a treaty, you must look to the latest technology. Because when it was framed in 1960, the technology was completely different. Today, the new technology can accommodate, and India was able to sell it.
No, if Baghliyar and Kishinganga can now be implemented after the arbitration.
Yeah.
So why can't we do the same thing with other projects also?
No, other projects you can't, because the treaty envisages construction of the dams or reservoirs in India for non-consumptive purposes. That is only for production of electricity, hydroelectricity, the run of the river. The moment you go for even a little
A
consumptive
storage dam, you can't have a storage
You can't have a
facility.
storage. The moment you plan that, Pakistan will object to that, and it would be very difficult for India to sail through even in the arbitration.
Okay. So Amitabh, the question is this: that after all this, do you think that this whole issue will just die down, or you think that this is something which a new issue has come up, because this is something which the people of India had not known much about Indus Water Treaty. Now the media is at least full of it.
Actually, the issue is not new. It has been discussed publicly earlier as well.
But it
this
has
time,
not,
because
no,
of the,
it
yes.
has been discussed in a different context.
Yeah.
Now the context is different.
See, the thing is, the Indus Water Treaty, the awareness about Indus Water Treaty is much more in Pakistan than in India.
Because they use more water there.
Yes, and many more people are dependent in Pakistan. It's for them, it's much more critical than it is for us. People south of Punjab in India, I don't think many of them would be aware about the existence of such a treaty and the water sharing arrangement that we have with Pakistan. So it is no surprise that before this, because it was being discussed in closed rooms or in seminars or in policy circles, that people were not majorly aware about it, and it wasn't used as a tool to put pressure on Pakistan. Now in the new scenario wherein you have social media and everyone talking to each other openly, so obviously the awareness of the public on Indus Water Treaty has gone up during the current phase of discussion on Indus Water Treaty. So that would have its own set of repercussions in terms of the pressure that builds up within India. But on the other hand, if you talk to people in Pakistan, even people on the street would tell you, about the treaty and how India is stopping water, and that's the pressure has been built up by political parties there. Everywhere, every time there has been a problem in Pakistan, they would blame it on India. India has not been releasing waters. See, you don't have electricity because India has been stopping waters. So everyone in Pakistan seems aware about it. So this current phase would probably make more people in India also talk about it, and maybe it will have some amount of ramifications on the way the pressure gets built up on the government to sort of act on Indus Water Treaty. But again, can we use it as a response measure? Now that is something that is not a very easy question to answer.
No, Mr. Katju. So as far as the pressure being built up on the government is concerned, you think this pressure can lead to some kind of a, at whatever point of time that India and Pakistan starts together, that this will become another issue on which there needs to be the comprehensive dialogue may include this also?
I don't think so. But waters is becoming a major issue in Pakistan, and they are wanting, ironically, Indus Waters Plus. They say that the treaty, that A, you don't abide by the treaty, and 2, that the treaty doesn't give enough. Because they are, some of them are focused on the eastern rivers. They say that the eastern rivers are not there, so it's leading to problems. But I think as far as this government is concerned, one interpretation can be that the signal is that, look, I'm to Pakistan that we are tired of you. That,
What?
that now it,
So whether
to
it's
use a water's analogy, if you permit in Hindi, अब पानी सर के ऊपर हो रहा है. So don't expect any sympathy from us. But as I said, invoking a treaty and then raising questions of a treaty should be part of a full-fledged package where you go to the very basic postulates of your Pakistan policy. That is something which makes sense to me, not knee-jerk reactions.
Mohan?
Yeah, the reason why Pakistanis are worried about treaty is this. The siltation is the big problem in Pakistan. These Himalayan rivers carry a lot of silt. At present, Pakistan main dam is the Mangala Dam. You may be surprised to know that 30% of the Mangala Dam is already silted. And thereafter, they do not have a place to store. Kalabag was a dam planned near the Sindh and Punjab border that has been stuck in a controversy because of the interstate disputes and mainly because of submergence. If Pakistan has no place to store the water, they're really worried what to do. So that kind of a insecurity has been built in Pakistan. And added to that, jihadis are circulating a lot of messages. Oh, India has something like a tap in their hand. They can cut off the water. So we'll all be ruined. This is basically used as an instrument to whip up sentiments in Pakistan. But the real fact is that there's nothing like a tap in India. The water flows by gravity. Pakistan will get a water. But it has been used by jihadis to create a sense of fear in Pakistan, and has succeeded to that extent.
Okay, I think on that note we'll end. It's a very interesting discussion that we have had, and hopefully, but as Mohan rightly pointed out, there is no tap which can be turned off.
Taps have to be built.
First, taps have to be built before it can be turned off, according to Mr. Katju. So we'll wait and watch how this issue will develop. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue, The Big Picture, same time on Monday. Meanwhile, have a great weekend.